The story begins in Westchester County, New York, in the early years of the 20th century. In October 1911, William Jackson was living and working as a farmhand. Like many laborers of his time, he was paid in cash and often carried his wages on him. He lived simply, worked long hours, and stayed mostly out of public attention. That made him vulnerable. One night, William Jackson was attacked during a robbery. He was struck with a blunt object and killed. His death was sudden, violent, and final. The crime shocked the local community. Murders were rare in the area, and the brutality of the act left many unsettled. Authorities began investigating immediately. They focused on robbery as the motive. Jackson's wages were missing, and there were signs of a struggle. What had been an ordinary life ended without warning, leaving behind questions, fear, and grief. That single night would set off a chain of events that would stretch across nearly 7 decades. Paul Geidel was born in 1894. By the time of the crime, he was still very young, barely out of his teenage years. He came from a working-class background and had limited education. Like many young men of his era, he struggled to find steady work and financial security. There is no evidence that Geidel had a long criminal history before this incident. He was not widely known to law enforcement, but he was poor, inexperienced, and desperate. Those conditions would soon collide with a terrible decision. After the murder of William Jackson, investigators followed leads within the local labor community. Paul Geidel quickly became a suspect. Evidence and questioning connected him to the crime. When confronted by authorities, Geidel confessed. He admitted that he had intended to rob Jackson for his money. During the robbery, the situation turned violent, and Jackson was killed. The confession removed much doubt from the case. In an era before advanced forensic science, a confession carried enormous weight. Geidel was arrested and formally charged. The trial moved forward in the legal climate of the early 1900s. Robbery resulting in death was treated with extreme seriousness. Courts at the time favored harsh punishment as a deterrent. Paul Geidel was found guilty. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment. At the time, a life sentence meant exactly what it sounded like. There was no clear expectation of parole. Life was meant to be life. Geidel was sent to Sing Sing prison, one of the most well-known and feared prisons in the United States. He entered as a teenager. He would not leave until he was an old man. Life inside Sing Sing was strict and unforgiving. Prisoners followed rigid routines. Days were repetitive. Silence, labor, and obedience defined daily life. Geidel adapted. He worked prison jobs and followed rules. Records show that he avoided serious disciplinary trouble. He did not become violent or disruptive inside the prison walls. Years passed, then decades. The world outside changed in ways Geidel could not see. Cars replaced horses. Radios entered homes. Wars were fought and ended. Entire generations were born, grew old, and died. Inside Sing Sing, time moved differently. Geidel remained an inmate while other prisoners came and went. He watched younger men arrive, serve their sentences, and leave. He stayed. As the decades passed, the American justice system slowly evolved. Ideas about rehabilitation began to compete with ideas about punishment. Parole boards were formed. Life sentences were occasionally reviewed. Geidel applied for parole multiple times. Each time he was denied. The reason was always the same. The crime was serious. A man had died. Public officials were cautious. No one wanted to be responsible for releasing someone convicted of murder, no matter how long ago it happened. Even with good behavior, even with age, the past remained heavier than the present. By the time Paul Geidel had served 40 years, he was no longer the young man who had committed the crime. By 50 years, he was elderly. By 60 years, he had spent more time in prison than most people spend alive. He became a living relic of an older justice system. Guards who watched over him were younger than his sentence. Administrators changed. Laws changed. But his cell remained. Geidel reportedly accepted his fate quietly. There were no dramatic protests, no escapes, no public campaigns. Just time. In 1980, after serving 68 years in prison, the state finally reconsidered. Paul Geidel was granted parole. He was released from Sing Sing at the age of 85. He walked out into a world that barely resembled the one he had entered as a teenager. Modern cities, modern technology, and a society transformed by time surrounded him. Freedom, after nearly 7 decades, was fragile. Not long after his release, Paul Geidel died. His case remains one of the most extreme examples of long-term imprisonment in American history. He served the longest sentence of any American prisoner who was eventually released. The story raises difficult questions. What does justice look like after 68 years? Does punishment lose meaning when it outlasts a lifetime? Can society balance accountability with mercy? Paul Geidel committed a terrible crime. William Jackson lost his life. Nothing can undo that. But the story of Paul Geidel is not just about guilt. It is about time, systems, and the weight of decisions made in one moment that echo across an entire lifetime. One crime, one sentence, 68 years behind bars. A story that still challenges how justice is measured.